You know, Bill and I both come from an advertising background for a long time. When you say we've been in digital entertainment for 6 years, it makes us sound really young and like vibrant and stuff, so I kind of like that. But unfortunately, together we've been in advertising for 30 plus years together. But the business has sort of evolved, and we started in the advertising side of the business. I used to be the chief digital officer at Ogilvy, and Bill was in the advertising and marketing side at advertising.com, ad.com, and AOL and United Online. And I think what we saw a lot of happening was a lot of the consumer behaviors that had sort of defined a lot of the advertising history in digital of how people were sort of behaving was all starting to transition to video. And there was a lot of interest both from advertisers and audiences around video and content and watching more of their video online. So Bill and I started sort of separately working in those capacities, Bill on the advertising sales side, and me for the creative agency, and started working in video. And we met at a company, about 6.5 years ago, called Media Rights Capital, where we started really a digital entertainment model based on video and advertisers, and bringing this great content to sites like YouTube and Hulu and what have you. Started with 2 big projects. One was Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, which was called Seth MacFarlane's Cavalcade of Cartoon Comedy, which was on YouTube. It was one of the first big, original shows on YouTube. And, as Seth sort of tells it, it was like Family Guy without the plot. And it was just, a terrific learning experience and I think a really eye-opening experience for both of us in terms of what was out there and what was happening in video and what was happening from an advertiser perspective, what was happening from an audience perspective. We just, decided this is where it's going, this is where the business is, and kind of started Believe Entertainment Group, sort of thus the name, out of the belief that we just got to will this business to happen. It's just where everything's going, and we've got to kind of make it happen, and we've got to sort of, chart our own destiny in entertainment and media.
Bill? Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is that as technological advancements around video delivery started to take shape in the last few years, it really lessened the reliance that a creator, whether it be an actor or director or just a writer, the only sort of outlet that you had 6 years ago was you put together a pilot, you went into the pilot system on broadcast, and you hope you got someone who was a believer, and they put your show up against something else that was successful, or you got some good tune-in, or you got some big actor, and you hoped. I think what we found 6 years ago was this was when a lot of the major networks weren't financing new shows. They were doing a lot of crap, and a lot of the birth of reality TV came. Industry jargon, sorry, because I don't bet that crap. Yeah, exactly. But frankly, there were a lot of big shows that weren't getting greenlit anymore, and it was directly attributed to the market softening, the advertising market softening, and so there was a lot of reality-based TV because it became cheaper to produce. Well, we started sort of the first project we did with Seth MacFarlane. The reason why we saw success was we weren't solely reliant on ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox to actually go out there and find an audience. Seth MacFarlane, it was Seth MacFarlane. He was the highest paid guy on TV, and he had a massive following online. And this is really before Facebook and before Twitter. He just had a massive following on YouTube. It was one of the highly, most searched TV shows, whether it was Stewie Griffin or Peter Griffin. And so what we quickly realized is that we didn't really need the typical TV pilot model. We could actually connect a creator that had a huge following directly with his audience. And really that was the first time that, that we started to do what we do. And in that model, instead of actually relying on the network, we actually brought our relationships and our expertise around advertising and the years we spent respectively in advertising, we brought the advertisers right into the conversation with the creator, who they wanted to talk to anyway, because they didn't really want to talk to the ad sales guy at Fox. They want to talk to the creator and figure out how they can really do some cool things. So we essentially just recognized that, and the entire entertainment delivery system and broadcast system has become unbundled. It's not going to go back in boxes. They've lost sort of control, and now there's really huge opportunities for creators to connect directly to their audiences, and that was 6 years ago. And then to now is really a completely different landscape out there. So, when we started Believe Entertainment Group, it was really built upon the natural migration of people watching the TV on the wall to people watching it on on their computer and on their handhelds and now their iPads. So we just wanted to actually just be right in the middle of that sort of transference.
How did you guys meet LeBron, and how did the whole series came about?
Sure. Well, it was we had done a bunch of work with Nike over the years, and frankly we did. And one of LeBron's favorite shows was Family Guy. We started having a conversation about how he could participate in Family Guy. Seth was talking about launching a new show named after one of the characters, Cleveland, and that's where LeBron was from. And he started to reach out to some folks at Fox and didn't have much luck. And by the fact that we'd worked with Nike before, they called us in. And this is right about when Dan and I were really getting behind this original content idea and Believe Entertainment Group. We were just about to launch, and we launched Believe Entertainment Group, and 2 weeks later, one of the head guys for global basketball said he wanted to have a meeting with us. And okay, we sat down with him, and he said, "Listen, there's a series of commercials that LeBron did 6 years ago called the LeBrons, where he played 4 different characters. Nike does what Nike does, which is they get the most out of their commercials, and then they change tact, and they go to something else. And LeBron has an idea that this concept could live on." And he has 2 kids of his own, and he was looking for things that those kids might want to watch, and thought back to his childhood and said, back when I was a kid, one of my favorite shows was Fat Albert. Wouldn't it be cool if we turned this, the LeBrons into a modern-day Fat Albert? And that was sort of the idea. And we sat down with the guys, and Dan and I basically became the business engine behind the idea. So we met LeBron, and he sort of gave us his POV on how this thing could be and should be, and our expertise and from working with Seth and doing a lot of the other entertainment properties that we had developed, we became the studio, the engine, we did the distribution, and we became the full business solution behind his concept for turning this TV commercial into a new digital series.
That's great points. What do you guys think about, since social media is everywhere and you have a lot of companies, new companies, students have content, individuals have ideas for shows. How do you guys use social media for promoting the shows that you guys create, especially like the LeBron?
Well, I think one thing, fortunately for a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we've got pretty massive social media networks. So, in a way, it's a slightly unfair question for, everyone to kind of use in that way, because I think LeBron has 12 million people, I think, on Facebook right now, and 6.5 million people on Twitter, and Jennifer's upward of 10, Tiesto's in the 20+ million across all of his stuff. So, but I'll say one of the things that we always make a point of whenever we're looking at potential talent partners and projects is not just great talent that we know are famous people, but who of the potential talent partners have audiences who will take action on behalf of that talent. And, it sounds like semantics, but there's a big difference between, a talent who's got a big following or, who can carry a movie, but, nobody's going to follow them online. Nobody's going to take action for them. The thing that's interesting about, any of these people that we're working with, whether it's LeBron or it's, Jennifer Lopez or it's Tiesto or it's Seth MacFarlane or any of these guys, they have audiences who will take action on their behalf and will follow them. And I don't mean just literally on Facebook. I mean literally just follow them. They'll go to concerts. They'll buy DVDs. They'll watch TV shows. They'll, they will take behaviors, to the next step based on, their interest in that talent. And so the social media world for that is really important, because it is one of the key ways that, we help connect this content directly with their audiences. And truthfully, a lot of times, a lot of our talent partners are saying, okay, I built this great, audience here in social media. I've got all these people. I'm tweeting, I'm posting pictures, but how do I make some money on this? Like, what do I do with this? There's so much, access, and people know to build the access, but it's okay. How do I leverage this now? The way we look at our talent partners through their social media networks is they are their own media network. I mean, they have access and they've aggregated these audiences. And by the way, it's a highly targeted audience that we know is relevant to that talent specifically and interested in what they have to say. So you couldn't ask for a better pre-qualified audience. So how do we leverage that and create it? And truthfully, for us, a lot of the time the answer is content, and that's where a lot of times the interest for building content and series and shows really comes from. And we happen to be fortunate, especially in the case of working with LeBron, that he and his team are smart business people. They understand, what it is to take that connection that he has with his fans and start to look at, the business around him and not just his basketball career, but planting the seeds and building those relationships and nurturing them and not taking them for granted. And finding ways of expanding on it in ways that he knows is going to help him connect with his audience and give something back. And I think that's really where the LeBrons came from, was his interest in giving something back and having a real voice to this sort of youth audience. We ended up doing a partnership with Boys and Girls Club of America, where we ended up donating HP and Intel computers to, I think we outfitted 10 local Boys and Girls Clubs with brand new computer centers as a result of a portion of the proceeds that we used from the show. And it's important. It was, part of the reason that he wanted to do this in general was to give back and provide positive messages to young people that are inspirational and empowering to be the best that they can be, without sounding corny. I mean, it really is kind of the mission. And you'll see that thematically throughout the episodes. They have themes. They have life lessons, and they hit on those themes. And the soundtrack that we did with a company called D-Town and some terrific artists, including Rev Run's nephew, who wrote a number of the tracks. It's a really terrific album. It's great rap and hip hop tracks, but it's all positive messages. It's all it's clean, and it's really sort of on point with the themes of the content in the show.
When you had the opportunity to show, or when the students actually saw at the Boys and Girls Clubs the LeBron cartoon, what was their reaction to it when you guys played it for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think the reaction in general has been pretty consistent, which is, I think when you say LeBron James is doing a series, you go, okay, I don't know what a series from LeBron James looks like. I don't know what an animated thing is supposed to look like. So I think, that's one of the sort of surprising things to know about him as a person. He's looking to, push the boundaries and do new things and try new angles. And I think, the reaction that we've got in general is, I guess it's a little bit of a backhanded compliment. They go, wow, I could actually see that on TV. I go, oh.
It's actually not that bad.
Wow,
it's actually pretty good.
Wow, this is actually really good. Oh, okay, that's not insulting at all. But I think that it's kind of indicative of where the world is,
Right.
And I think people are surprised to see that, somebody from a big network said to us, it's wholly terrifying and also amazing that LeBron and you guys could go out, build this show of this kind of TV quality, bring in all the advertisers, do all the distribution, generate tens of millions of viewers. That we generate almost 50, 60 million views of the show, and never talk to a network, never have one conversation with a network. And this was a network executive saying this to us. And just sort of lamenting kind of the state of affairs and where the world is and just kind of how those things go. So I think the reaction's been great. It's I think in and of itself, for young people, it is supposed to be, just by the fact that it exists, a message of empowerment and,
Right.
Do what you believe.
When you guys set off to create Believe, most people think that I'm going to create my content and I want to pitch it to BET, MTV networks, or VH1. Can you explain to the audience the difference between that process and the process that you guys are doing?
I mean, I think the process of creation stays relatively consistent. It's the manner in which you monetize it. So in most cases, if you're going to pitch a show to traditional broadcast network, different than ours is you're essentially pitching your idea for them to buy. And they become the owner of that IP, and they take it and they do what they want with it, and you build in some sort of a fee, whether it's a producer fee or some other fee, a creator fee or a writer fee, and you write yourself into the sort of the business of whatever your creation is. Believe Entertainment Group, we're not a service company. LeBron didn't come to us and say, can you create a show for me and work for hire? We created a joint venture with LeBron. So everything that we do, we're business partners in it. And one of the things that Believe does differently than traditional, I have an idea and I'm going to take it and sell it to or bring it to a network, is we finance the shows on our own, and then we take and build out our own revenue streams around the show. And for the most part today, that revenue stream is predominantly advertising supported, and we utilize sort of our ad backgrounds to go out and talk to CMOs and make sense and translate something that's relatively difficult to translate into things that they can buy. And we call it a working media model. We break everything out into promotion, cost per thousands, and bring that to brands and give brands real opportunity to integrate with a big star like LeBron, and pretty much go as close as you possibly can to an endorsement without really crossing that line. He's not there to embrace the product. The product is actually embracing the content. But the difference for our business is that we're creating things that we actually own. We're creating a library. We're creating assets. For creators out there, I would say it's a new day and age. You're not beholden to the networks. There's not one opportunity. There's multiple opportunities, and it's more. We just figured it out using a media model, and understanding that we had literally millions and millions of fans that were ready to consume the content, and we just actually bundled it all together. So, not much different in a creative process standpoint, but in the facilitation and the execution, very different.
Right. You mentioned brands. How did you guys approach your brands in terms of your strategies, and what advice would you give to our audience if they have some great content, they followed all the steps? I think I got a hot film, documentary, a sports channel, fashion, cooking, whatever it is. What's the strategy to get brands to partner with what you're doing?
I think the key around that is figuring out, and we were just talking about it on the YouTube stuff, and is figuring out how the distribution is going to work, and really thinking about how to incorporate the media component of that distribution into the sales plan. Because for those of you who work in advertising or spend time in advertising and production, there's kind of two sides to an advertising budget. There's the production side, which is I got to produce my TV spots, I got to produce my print ads, I got to physically create the assets that are going to go out and run in the marketplace. And then there's the media dollars, which is I got to pay NBC, I got to pay Yahoo, I got to pay the out-of-home company, I've got to pay people to actually run my ads. It's usually 90% of the budget goes to the latter, and 10% of the budget goes toward the former, which is the actual production. And these days, brands don't have a lot of money for production. It's not. It's tough. It's hard to sell on production. So I'd say the more that you can look at partnering with YouTube or partnering with a distribution company where the stuff is going to be out there and it's stuff that brands are doing and they got to run the media and they got to get their stuff out. The easier it is for them to understand how to incorporate your project into their plans. And the biggest key is understand that they want to figure out how your project's going to help their plans. They don't really care that you've got this fantastic movie or TV show or whatever it is. As much as we love our content, at the end of the day, they don't really want to just buy a show. They want to understand, well, how is what you're doing going to help engage my audience and get me my objectives? Help me achieve my objectives. By using the content as a way to engage people in a more interesting way than me maybe just putting my ad out and trying to kind of force my message out to people.
Okay. Bill, any thoughts on that?
I mean, just to go to a brand and say, hey, do you want to support it? I think to Dan's point, that the biggest thing that brand needs to do is feel safe, and some of the brands are out there feeling really safe around YouTube and the multi-$100 million investment YouTube is making. They're one of the biggest distribution platforms out there. While they started with really user-generated content, last year they made a pretty big investment in creating premium content experiences. So to the extent that you have TV shows or TV ideas, it's available to go out and set up a YouTube channel that can be done pretty easily, and you can directly plug into their advertising system literally overnight.
And a lot of those guys are looking for content,
Yeah.
by the way.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the people who are building these YouTube channels now are realizing, oh God, I got to put stuff on it. I got to keep it going. So as literally as you're spending time on YouTube and you're looking at channels and you're looking at these things and you see things that are, channels that are interesting or relevant to the content and stuff you're creating, reach out to them, call them. I mean, people are looking for content, I think, across the board.
Great. What we want to do now is, before we start showing the clips, we want to open it up to questions.
So how does that work as far as your, this is true branded entertainment, but just on an animation model? So how does
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at it is we don't really think of our business as brand and entertainment. We look at it as sort of digital entertainment. And I know it sounds like semantics. The only difference is one starts with a brand brief and one starts with a talent partnership and an investment. So the way our process works is we'll find a talent partner like LeBron. We'll commit to the project. So in essence, we are the studio. We're not an ad agency or a talent agency or reps or managers. So we are the financing vehicle for the content. So we start with a talent agreement. We say, listen, just like a studio, we're going to finance the show, and you're going to here's the back end you're going to get, and here's how we're going to divvy it up, and here's the rights, and everybody, it's lawyers and whatever. But we start with that really purposely because we think it empowers the brand process, because we become decision makers in everything that we're doing. It limits the amount of decision makers when you're talking to brands, and brands know working with talent is never streamlined, right? And so because we're co-owners of the stuff that we do with our talent partners, we're able to, and because we've usually started the production and started the process and we're into the development, we know what we're doing, and we're not really going to the brands asking them for permission to create a show. We're saying, listen, like a great TV show or literally any cable TV network that's building their reputation based on the quality of the content they're producing, saying, listen, we're doing this. I mean, nobody, AMC's not asking brands for permission to make Walking Dead. Not they're not saying like, oh well, it's sponsored Diet Coke, and they're all kind of, the zombies are sort of thin, so it's it's a great synergy. But it's it's like, and we just don't want to be in that space. So what we're trying to do is create this content, say this is what we're doing. But listen, we're ad guys. We've been in the ad business for a long time, and by the way, so are all the TV networks. I mean, they are all looking for meaningful ways to integrate brands. And then we start that process, and we say, we'd like to figure out how to put you in a relevant way, in a way that's going to be organic. I mean, the kids wearing Nike apparel is an obvious. The Beats headphones is an obvious. HP and Intel came to us and they said, we want to help, power the technology behind it. We want to help with the production. We want to help, great. That's a great partnership. So we're really looking for ways that we can build that out. And then we build an entire media plan, just like a TV network would run it on air. They'd run the TV spots on their network. In this case, our network for the LeBron season 1 was YouTube. And so we built, YouTube helped us, and we built a whole media plan around the show for our advertising partners. So we also, and we'll show you in a few minutes, we did custom spots, custom TV spots, animated spots with characters. We'll show you one that we did for Bing. We did a couple for HP and Intel where, we just had some fun with it. And, Bing actually ran them during the playoffs last year, during the Boston series and during the Chicago Bulls series. They ran them on air as well. So we're trying to build just interesting partnerships and things that we can do, not just shoving product into the episodes, although, sometimes they want that brand exposure, but just, finding creative ways to build it out, because that's really the power of the content, is engaging that audience in an unexpected way, in a fun way, and hopefully in a more natural way that makes that audience want to take action and learn more about it.
Okay. Before I get to your question, talk about AOL in the distribution with AOL that you have.
Well, I mean, we're doing a partnership with AOL for our Jennifer Lopez program that's going to launch in October, and I think the AOL partnership is really kind of indicative of all the partnerships that we have, whether it's AOL or YouTube, or this year the LeBrons is going to run on Xbox. Twitter. I mean, we build relationships with all of these partners where we're looking for them to, help distribute the content in a different way and in a way that we think is, kind of truthfully more mainstream for how people watch content these days.
Gentleman in the back, you had a question?
I mean, our model and what we do at Believe is really to partner with sort of very premium talent, whether it's Jennifer Lopez or a Tiesto or Seth MacFarlane. But there are massive amounts of money being spent on YouTube stars that you've never heard of. I mean, one of the biggest YouTube stars ever to come out off their platform is Justin Bieber. He evolved from the platform. There's a lot of companies out there that are aggregating, sort of without sounding, bad connotation, unknowns with great content, and whether it's niche content. I don't know. There's channels around yoga. There's channels around baking. There's channels around home living and creating different safe environments. There's all these specific channel areas that are really developed by people that you've never heard of. They're not really celebrity driven. Our business tends to be just on the other side of that. And in conversations, in most cases with brands, we try to develop projects with very sort of must-have talents. And in a lot of cases, we're trading on the celebrity that we actually partner with because, in the end, brands want to break through. What we're trying to provide for the brands and the shows that we do are meaningful opportunities for them to break through to audiences. They're having a harder time reaching their audiences with DVR. People are fast forwarding through their commercials. Outdoors, is having their problems. Newspapers. So this is an opportunity, and the different things that we do with the LeBrons or with this project with Jennifer Lopez is figure out meaningful ways for brands to participate. But it's not sort of brand endorsements from Jennifer Lopez. I mean the Tiger Beat Entertainment project we're doing with Jennifer, while she's the executive producer with us, it's going to be about, it's a young, youth-oriented entertainment tonight, and a lot of it will be sort of the young Hollywood and from the POV of young Hollywood. But there's other folks out there that are starting entertainment channels or specific channels on YouTube that that aren't well known, that are just producing great niche content that are really seeing thousands of people, millions of people, tens of millions of views of the content that now get the attention of the advertiser. It's a cart before the horse in some cases, but if you're an unknown, you got to have the volume of views and subscribers. If you're a well-known, it's generally fairly a lot easier to go out and get those views and get those subscribers and get the interest.
And it's a function just of the maturity of the market. I think it's going to be less cumbersome as we go forward. I mean, our hope is that by starting with, premium talent, it adds credibility just to the whole industry in general, and it makes people just more comfortable spending money on content online. And if we can help, pave the way in that regard, the next time around, an advertiser's like, God, that worked out really great, actually. Doing the video stuff was really easy. It was really fun. And then someone pitches them a really great idea. Maybe they're a little less, risk averse to trying it. And I think it's going to be a function of time. I mean, we started doing this in 2007 when, people were looking at us like we had 6 heads. And now we only have 4 heads. So it's, it's markedly improved. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just, but we started our business in probably one of the worst economic, downturns in the last 50 years.
No business training at all.
Yeah, exactly. Kramer, but I think, the reason that we did that is we knew this stuff was coming, and we just felt like you gotta be in it now, you gotta participate now, you gotta just try it and put it up there, and what's the worst that happens? It doesn't get the views, you try something else. I don't know, but I think, the reason we started the business in that way is just because we wanted to be ready as the business matured, and I think that a lot of that is just a function of the business maturing. And so I think, again, the company's called Believe Entertainment. Stick to your guns and just do what you think is right. And there's nobody who's been doing it long enough to tell you you're wrong. It's just, whether or not it's going to work, and if that doesn't work, plenty of stuff we tried, doesn't work. We just keep going, retool, and try something else.
As some encouragement to you, I met this gentleman. He by the name of Fred Siebert, and he introduced me to this other gentleman, and this gentleman had a passion for sports. He told this gentleman, he was like, "Why don't you start doing some sports content?" How many years later, JR? 3 years later, how many views you have on YouTube? 55 million. All he comes to work with, he tells us to every place we invite him to, he just walks with his camera and he shoots. That's all he does. He talks about sports all day long. And to encourage you, you just got to keep doing it because the industry is shifting, and they're looking for some new content. You could be, the shift is now you become the network, and that's what I think that Dan and Bill are trying to tell everybody. You become the network. You will still have the VH1s, but the VH1 stars now they're looking. Justin Bieber, YouTube star, right? This what's the guy's name with the Asian guy with the dance craze? What's his name? Yes. This guy created a dance craze, got featured on Good Day New York. He has the most views on YouTube doing a dance craze. And then to talk about celebrity, young man did an experiment. It was on Jeff Probst's show, one of the new talk shows that came out. Guy had a problem. He said, let me see if I could become a celebrity. He hired 5 of his friends. He went to Lord & Taylor, dressed up, hired his friend, who was a big guy, walked around in a bodyguard, had his friend just walk around Times Square flashing him, got his hair cut, and people started taking autographs of this guy. They thought he was a celebrity. Bugged everybody out. Everybody was like, oh, man, who's that? Are you part of the Kardashians? Because you look like a Kardashian brother. You look like one of the Kardashian brothers. Who are you? Went on the talk show, told everybody about his experiment. Now Jeff Probst is giving him his own talk show just on an experiment with him and his college friends. That's 2 examples. So that's some great stuff. One more question, and I want you guys to see some footage. Anybody else has a question? Go ahead. And then you
I think in every case it was a little different. I mean, we did the big Seth MacFarlane project years ago, which established, really a market where there wasn't one yet. Yeah, he was really the first big TV star to cross over and do something, digital. And it actually put us, with Dan and I, sort of in the middle of, this new evolution around broadcast and digital entertainment. And so for some cases, the relationships have come about from our own Rolodexes and advertising. From other cases, it's traditional. We actually have great relationships with all the big talent agencies. We go in like any other TV buyer or producer or studio, and we meet with the people. They pitch us ideas, and because we're the financing entity, it's we're guys that are writing checks for them. So they're happy. And they want to actually talk to us, and they want to pitch. So we spend a couple hours every couple of weeks in all the different talent agencies, and they come in and they pitch us shows. Like LeBron just came from a relationship we had. Jennifer came through relationships we have with talent agencies. Tiesto came from, ironically, a board member. I mean, the circle becomes relatively small. There's not that many big talent agencies out there, and frankly, unfortunately or fortunately for us, there's not a lot of companies out there doing it to the level we're doing it. So it's established us as if you're a premium talent and you want to do something in digital, chances are it crosses our desks right now.
Okay. Gentleman in the back? Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, we actually, because it's, really the world we come from originally, in advertising and media, believe it or not, our brand relationships are insertion orders. I mean, they're exactly the way you buy inventory on YouTube, AOL, NBC. They do, tens of thousands, ad agencies do tens of thousands of insertion orders, a quarter, a year, whatever it is. And we just, one of the things that we thought about when we started this business was how in the world can we make creative and production easier to buy, easier to tell the story, easier to translate for brands. And what do brands know? They know media metrics. They know engagement rates. They know brand favorability. They know purchase intent. They know, click-throughs, time spent, visits to a site, likes, followers, all these things that is how they measure the majority of their media dollars within, at least in the digital world. So how can we put these projects into that context? And that's really what we measure. So for the LeBrons, for example, with HP and Intel, we did a brand study with Vizu It was a short brand study that was, randomly selected based on viewers that asked a couple of brand questions. We measured brand favorability. We measured brand purchase intent. We did, a full suite of metrics with YouTube across time spent, number of views, click-throughs, engagement rates, pass along. I mean, just, everything they measure. And truthfully, it's become one of the big points of difference for us that, that we're able to have a really in-depth marketing and media conversation with our brands and translate the value of it beyond, because once you get beyond, LeBron will get you in the door for the conversation, right? There's nobody who doesn't want to have a conversation about a LeBron, series. It's interesting. It just is. But, what a lot of people in Hollywood don't realize is that that whole talent halo thing wears off real quick when they're like, all right, you want me to spend how many millions of dollars for what now? Now, how are you going to measure it? What are you going to do with it? And they go, look, shiny. So you're out the door. You don't want to, you can't build a business around, your needs with an advertiser. They get pitched everything in the world. They got to build their business. That's what they're in business for. So the key for us is really putting a media model together and really helping them understand the value from a metrics perspective, putting it in context with all of the other stuff that they're going to buy. So, and let's face it, for those of you who've been through it, the way you find success is whoever the brand manager is who's managing the business. They are they got to report back. They got to show to their bosses they didn't waste the company's money, and that's fortunately or unfortunately what it comes down to. So when they can put it in context of everything else and say, listen, we spent we did video pre-rolls for $28 on website X, and we got a click-through of 0.1%, and we did this LeBron's program with a CPM that was only $15, and we got a 3.1% click-through. You're measuring things that are comparable, and they go, oh wow, that was really smart that you did that big innovative program because it paid off. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this less scary, less hard to buy, because there's 1,000 reasons why everybody can say no. Anybody can say no to something. It's just, the excuse to say yes is giving that comfort level that it's not different than what you know. It's not outside, your purview of what you need to get done. And it's going to pay off for you big, both in the press and in the internal metrics that you got to parade around and show people how you're building your business.
If you could give our audience some takeaways before we show some clips on things they could do now to help build their, content properties, what advice would you give the audience?
Learn about media.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
really,
right now that's if you want where the checks are being written, media today is the broadcast networks of old. I mean, they want to get involved. If you have a way to actually move the needle on whether it's purchase intent or favorability, or you have something that no one else is doing, figure out how to actually put that in the context of media buying, because people aren't going to stop spending advertising dollars. They'll stop production dollars, but they won't stop advertising and promoting. And nowadays it's harder to reach core consumers. So you can figure out the way, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or YouTube channel or specific content, to engage an audience that a brand wants to reach. You're going to get dollars from them, and your show will get greenlit.
Yeah, and I just think in general, just having the understanding of what people can do with the content, and it's hard because you get so wrapped up in actually creating the content because that's the most consuming part of it, and that's the passion point. But having some context around what comes next and where it's going to run, and having an appreciation for that, I think goes a long way in helping people understand the value, especially on the advertising side, if that's where you're taking it.
So you guys kindly and so elegantly gave me some content to play. The first one I want you guys to introduce is the one you did with Drake, with the LeBrons. I watched that. I was like, can I be animated too? Can I do that? Can you animate me? I'm sorry.
One of the things we also do, this is sort of, I don't want to say it's a trick, but it's a way to capitalize on other active audiences. Drake has millions of people across the social media network as well. So LeBron and Drake were friends. We looked for meaningful ways to bring some of the different business associates and friends LeBron had. And we met Drake, and he was great and loved the idea. And we said, well, why don't you actually come on in? And we created an episode around Drake that Sprite was a big part of. that also, you'll see Sprite in it, you'll see Beats in it, you'll see Nike, of course. It's funny, we didn't touch upon it before, but typically one brand is involved in digital projects. One of the things that we try to do is take things a lot further. We're looking at things that, a real core business. The brands don't own the show. So it's really probably one of the only examples to date that has, multiple brands to this level involved in one show. Right. But this episode with Drake, it was a fun episode. Drake gets in a little bit of a tiff with business LeBron. He's the smooth operator. And the whole thing around the show is positive reinforcement. And in this one, Drake and Biz find themselves at a crossroads, and rather than fight, they actually have a rap off. So have a look.
For the Bing spot, it was a 30-second spot. It was just, one of the things that we look at when we try to create content for advertisers specifically is TV commercials are undeniably advertising territory. So a lot of times what we try to do, instead of trying to work in brand, advertising messages into the content itself and make it feel forced, we just call an ad, and we just create an ad. In this case, it was for Bing, using the characters. The only point was just to call out features just like they would do for one of their actual ads. It's not branded entertainment; it's an ad, and just using the characters. But what we found is, because we use the characters and we made the extra effort to make the advertising interesting and fun and relevant to the content they're about to watch, we got response rates that were almost 8x the industry average from both an engagement rate as well as a click-through rate. And then this spot being also used not just online, but also, I think I mentioned before, on TV during the playoffs in last year in the Boston series and the Chicago Bulls series against the Heat.
Cool.
And we also did that was a 15-second version of it. We also did a 30-second version of it. They ran the 30 on TV, and the 15s ran on online.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Oh, so let's give a round of applause for our guest.